you believe that they are the most despicable person on the planet. Because if that person doesn't get a fair trial, baby, it's a slippery slope.
Mm.
Right. And so then your best friend, your family member, they ain't getting a fair trial either.
All right. So, first and easy question: why is Bill Cosby out of jail?
The first and easy question.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby is out of jail because he did not get a fair trial, because the prosecutors violated his constitutional rights. In short, when Bill Cosby was dealing with the initial allegations from Andrea Constant, right? The prosecutor then was Mr. Castro. He said, you know what? We're not going to be able to prove this. It's been a year. Your credibility is a little suspect. Your story is a little inconsistent. I could bring it, but I'm not going to win. I don't have enough evidence. So I can't help you in the criminal realm. But what I can do is I can help you on the civil side. So if you bring a civil suit against him, I can make sure he cannot invoke his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, right? So the DA said, what we'll do is that we will basically promise that we will not prosecute him in this instance so that he cannot assert his right to remain silent in the civil case. And what they basically said is that when you get to the civil case and you start admitting shit and you start saying you did this and that, we can't use that against you because we have promised that we will not. That's the only reason you would give up your right to remain silent.
Right. And that was,
So
and they traded that for immunity.
traded it. He
Okay. All right.
paid on it.
And he's like, if that's the case, then yes.
That's what he said. Okay.
Yeah. If that's the case, then yeah, I put a little thing in the drink one time. Yes. Right.
Right. Because I could pay some things. I ain't trying to be, I'm not trying to be not free.
Right.
Right. And so that's what happened. Right. She got a civil lawsuit. She got something like $3.3 million, whatever may have you. Everybody's happy. Go away. New DA comes to town. I'm not bound by what this other DA said. I don't have to listen to him. No, what you said back then, we're about to use that in this trial, right? Because it's a statement. It's your admission. And call in criminal defense the Holy Grail, because it's basically a confession.
Right.
Basically admitting to the allegations. So they're like, listen, we're gonna use that. We're gonna use that. And so what happened was, in the interim, after reading 79 pages of the decision, the old DA contacted the new DA and was like, yo, remember what had happened was I told him that we wasn't going to go that way, and he gave up those rights, and so you probably can't do this. You probably could get him on some other chick, but not this one. And she's like, yeah, you got anything in writing? You got contract? You signed something? Was this formalized? Was this memorialized somewhere? And the DA is basically like, nah, but see what had happened is I did this press conference. And in the press conference, I basically said, we're not going to pursue this because X, Y, and Z.
Right.
We didn't memorialize it, but it was understood by all the parties, right? Understood enough so that Bill Cosby relied on it.
Right. Because I'm solid. We solid. You said what you had said, and I did what I said. Yeah. Right.
So the new DA said, well, you don't have nothing in writing. And that's a press conference. That's not really an agreement that we have to be bound by. And in fact, that's not how we do it in Pennsylvania. If you want to give somebody immunity, there's a statute. You got to do that shit. You got to go before the judge and you got to get immunity conferred. There's a way we do it. You didn't do it that way, right? And so when Bill Cosby appealed after his trial to the intermediate court, the intermediate court said, yeah, no, the DA, he made a press conference. That's not a contractual obligation.
So at that time, everybody was with the shits.
Everybody was with the shits.
They just was like, oh, nah, that don't mean nothing. We need to see this. We want to see this.
The new DA has all these political aspirations, right? You got the Me Too movement, and you got 50 people, and you got the Cover of Times, and you got CNN, and you got all of these people doing interview after interview after interview, and all this political pressure to actually get a conviction, right? So they have the first trial. What happened in the first trial? First trial hung.
Right.
Can't decide.
And then his counsel left. The young lady.
Monique. So
yes.
Monique Presley at some point exited, and now I believe it's disbarred.
Right.
Sidebar.
We gotta come back to that.
Or I should say indefinitely suspended.
Oh, I follow her on Twitter. I ain't get none of that. I get the little wine selfies.
Yeah, baby, it's right there. Well, you got Google. She got suspended. She, co-mingling funds. That's what they do. Yeah. Anyway, we have another show about that.
Right, we come back. Yeah.
Especially if you're a high-profile black lawyer, because you know they're gonna be on your ass.
Yeah, absolutely. What were you thinking?
What were you thinking? Right. Yeah. Right. So she stepped out of it, and they had some other lawyers. So the first trial was hung. Now there was 2 issues on this appeal. They didn't really get to, but I thought that was the more juicy issue. So the first issue was whether or not the DA's promises to Bill Cosby, whether that was enough to induce him to give up his constitutional rights, such that for them to not abide by that promise basically deprived him of his right to remain silent.
Right. Okay. Right.
First thing. That's the first issue. The second issue was after the hung jury, the prosecutor went back and was like, yo, judge, see what happened was we have these other women. We want them to be able to testify too, so we could demonstrate that this is, a pattern of conduct. This is not like a one-off. This is what he does.
Right.
The first trial judge was like, yeah, I'm gonna let you use one other person to make that establishment, right? Hung jury. They went back on the second trial and was like, yeah, can we get 5 more? 10 more? Can we get 20 more? And the judge was like, I'll give you 5 more. Right. So that was the second issue as to whether or not allowing those 5 other witnesses was so prejudicial.
Right.
That it was more prejudicial than it was probative. It was more harmful than it was to prove that this actually occurred.
Right.
They didn't even reach that. So what the court said, the high court now, this is the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, right? Not the court of, which is the equivalent of the Court of Appeals in New York, which is the court of last resort.
Okay.
They look back and they
said, last chance you, if you will.
Yeah. Before you go to the feds.
Yeah.
Right? Before you go habeas to the feds, right? Last chance court, they said, you know what? We are actually going to apply contract law, which is not uncommon. Contract law, these principles in contract law, which basically says that if someone makes you a promise and you rely on that promise to your detriment,
a handshake is good enough.
Right. You need some remedy, especially when the promise causes you to give up something of the magnitude of your constitutional rights.
Freedom, right.
Right. And so the court says we can't do that. And while it wasn't done formally the way the criminal statute says, we still recognize in contract law that you can detrimentally rely on a promise, right? And so we have to afford you a remedy for when that happens. Is throw this shit out and don't come back.
So wait a minute. So to that point though, when did this new team get installed? Because like this happened, this news was they released this news like Beyonce releasing the album in the middle of the night. You'd be like, I didn't even know she was working on music. Like I didn't know this was a thing. Was this ongoing? Like we hadn't heard no inklings of he's got a team that's gonna switch it over to contract law and try to get him out on the technicality. None of that. We ain't hear none of it.
No. So this is all part of the appellate process.
So it's been ongoing.
Ongoing. After he lost at trial, there was an intermediate appeal. He lost that appeal, right? The intermediate court, right? So it's every state has 3 tiers: trial court, intermediate court, and then typically the Supreme Court or your Superior Court or your Court of Appeals or whatever you call it. Doesn't matter what it's called, right? So it's the highest court. So this has been going on since he was convicted.
Okay, got it.
His first appeal, he lost that one, right? And then he appealed that to the high court. So this court now is looking at everything that happened before it came to them. That is what happened in the intermediate court, what happened at both trials, and what happened before the trials, right? That's the agreements and the deals that were made during those civil depositions. So they looked at all of that. That's why the decision is 79 pages.
So,
the dissent.
Good question. Was it the same judge?
I don't know. They didn't. Okay. I didn't notice if they mentioned the judge's name. But it doesn't really matter if it's the same judge because there is a record, right? There is a trial record. And so whether it's the same judge or not at the trial level, whatever happened at that other trial, the new judge, if it's a new judge, is privy to that.
Right.
They're privy to all of that.
Now, I saw your post earlier. Did you said you called this?
I called it. You
So you,
my IG?
yeah. So you called, you thought in 2018 that it was a sham, it was impropriety, and you was like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna take some time, but it's gonna happen.
I absolutely called it. I absolutely said he did not get a fair trial because a lot of times, we as the media, the people, we tend to think about whether or not a person is innocent or guilty, and that is never a factor when it comes to whether or not they got a fair trial. And I'm going to tell you right now, Derek Chauvin did not get a fair trial. Oh, you're like, come on with that. Right?
Jeez.
So when his shit gets reversed, we'll be right back here going.
Oh, you don't say that. Oh, jeez. You did call that though. You said that. You did say that.
Yeah.
So Bill. So another question. So he can't get tried again. He can get tried for others if they come forward with some evidence. But
sure.
Yeah.
20 other women that they actually might have a statute of limitation that they could get in there because this is not rape. This particular incident with Ms. Conant was a sexual assault case, right? Allegations were about digital penetration, and this, for those who don't understand the technical term, finger fucking.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yes.
Right. So
yes. Thank you. Oh, now I get it. Oh, okay, yeah, that's what he did. No, but
right.
Yeah,
that had nothing to do with the IT person,
right?
Digital penetration, not the IT guy, right? So yeah.
So everybody, again, Black Twitter lost their mind today. Just everybody. That point you just made, though, Ike, it's not about guilt or innocence. Right. Everybody was stuck on that, just in such a way, and it Bill, this the dirt, the scum of the earth, and blah blah blah. Yeah, but they tripped him up on. They sent him in on a technicality. So I mean, it's only fair. It's only fitting that he get set free on a technicality. Because I remember, of course, I didn't know how all in depth, but I do remember him getting the immunity deal. I remember that.
Yeah.
Because it was like a tape recording on the table, and they was like, "Well, did you?" And he was like, "Yes." And then when the trial come, they like, can we admit this as evidence? And I'm like, how? They just, only reason he said yes, because they said we wouldn't use it.
Exactly.
If Adis a bitch was a person.
Yeah, right.
So now Ike, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is one of the main reasons why one, Bill Cosby didn't speak today is because you will never catch that man publicly saying, I touched that woman, or I, did that thing.
No, I think the reason he didn't speak is today is because he's 83, he's blind, deaf, and he might have been quite surprised, right? So let him.
Oh wow, okay.
Right, he may not remember. They lost an appeal already.
Yeah.
So every time you appeal, the chances of success get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer, and so he may not have had a lot of hope that he was going to get out as a result of the appeal process. But maybe he thought he'd get out as a result of early release for good behavior and things of that nature, right? So he may have been surprised. He may have been.
So it's just kind of like he was, in the jail cell doing some braille and writing some stand up and braille. And they said, "Hey Cosby, yes, get your stuff. You're out of here."
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I think he can see. I think he can see.
He probably can.
Yeah. I think his vision is like as bad as mine.
I'm visually impaired, so
right.
Do that blind spectrum.
Yeah, I think he had some sort of a glaucoma situation going on.
Oh, you can smoke that away. You can smoke that away.
No, don't do that. You can't do that.
You can smoke that away. Yeah. But how many? So he got 10 years. How many did he serve?
He served almost 3.
I think 3.
He would have been out next year anyway, right? He was doing 3 to 10.
I don't know what the calculations are in Pennsylvania. So I don't know how much of the 10 you had to do. I don't know if he got 10 flat as opposed to, determinate versus indeterminate, meaning that you have a range as opposed to a flat sentence.
Okay. I keep reading 3 to 10.
Okay. So it could be. So typically when you have a range, if you serve the minimum of that range, you might be for parole, but I believe I read that he saw parole and he was denied because he refused to, I don't know,
Yeah, that was just like last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was last year.
Yeah,
He tried to get out for COVID. He tried to get out on parole. Like they really, and that's the part that I struggle with when all these people was going berserk. It's like y'all really don't see that they was going out of their way to stick it to Bill.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like out of their way.
And that's gotta make you wonder, because
has to make you wonder.
Whatever it was, is he still a threat to women? Is he still calling women up like, here, take these 3 half pills and let me, you know what I'm saying, at 80?
Right.
Well, I mean, I understand that you want to pursue justice, but who are you protecting, right? Prosecute this and it not be an incarceratory sentence, right?
Meanwhile, Kevin Spacey is out, and your uncle is out, and a couple of your Boy Scout counselors is out.
Right, Roman Polanski and all them cats are still moving around, right?
Yeah, right. Meanwhile, and not to compare and all that, but you gotta wonder. You just gotta wonder. You know what I'm saying? And I hate to go back to, because I saw a lot of this on Twitter too, with the whole, it was the era, and that's just what people did, and he's being judged by today's standards. And like I agree with that, but I don't want to use that, because you can't really use that no more. That don't work.
No, well, here's the problem with that, is that what era? The era is now. Like, if you're listening to
true that. That's true.
Right? How many chicks you fucked on a Molly? How many come on, look at Sean. You know how many chicks I fucked when I'm drunk? I got drunk just to have sex. This is a pattern in our community. This is a time thing. This is a pattern in the community, and it needs to be addressed. This is not just Bill Cosby. It's not just rappers of today. This has been perpetuated for as long as we can talk about it. Right? Does not know. And nobody is stopping the Lil Waynes and all of these other rappers who are singing about how they are giving women drugs and then having sex. Nobody's talking about that. And then 30 years from now, when they lock Lil Wayne up, we're going to be back. No, right.
Mr. Wayne, according to your 2002
but even beyond
album,
even beyond community, I was talking about industry, because in that industry, that was part of the lifestyle. That's like basically what you did. And not to victim shame, but there are so many stories again, where they just, all right, okay, I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Right.
I'm just saying your recall of the events don't add up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to look at stuff. We should be able to look at some of those things objectively without the scorn and you're just a victim phobe and you're victim shame. I'm like, nah. It's just from the way I heard
it. You think it's impossible to do that now, though?
What's that?
Everything you just said. Do you think it's still possible to like not, look at something via the scope of
you got to have a critical thinking hat on. You can't just go along, get along, and that's what mainstream. That's what a lot of people do. They just hear something, take it, and that's it. As opposed to being like, all right, granted, this could be a slime bucket. He could have been guilty 72 times, but there was that one time, miss, where he violated you, and then you went back the next night.
And the next night after that.
And the next that doesn't add up. So my critical thinking hat is not. I'm not putting you on putting the spotlight on you as a victim. I'm like, well, what do you want? How do you want me to respond to the fact that you went back?
Right.
How do you want me to respond to that?
So that's when I think that there is a fine line between this concept of victim shaming and accountability. Because we as women, at some point, we are responsible for the situations we put ourselves in. Right. And I don't care what you say. If you know that there is a man who is pining for you in a sexual way, a powerful man, there is a dynamic difference, right? He's power, you're not. And they call you at midnight in a hotel and they ask you to come over and you were not comfortable when you were there the last fucking time.
Yeah.
You might want to say, thank you, I can't make it. I'm not. Because you have to be responsible for where you put yourself in. If you decide to go and they hand you 3 bills and you take them shits, you have to be accountable.
Well, if he puts them in your drink when you go to the bathroom, it's kind of hard to. Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Different. different. Again, different. But
Yeah.
then
You got the BYOB. You got the BYOB.
exactly. Come
Check
on.
for the bubbles. Yeah, check for the bubbles.
I don't drink nothing I ain't pour.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
I'm
Say
not.
that.
Matter of fact, you take a sip first. We're not playing that game. Okay. You gotta understand that if that's the industry that you're in, right? You should be on guard. You should understand that they're using all kinds of date rape drugs.
But you think that's a more of a now thing? Like,
No.
you know, y'all know about that now as
No,
opposed
they
to
knew
back
about
then?
it, and they knew
You
about
think?
Yeah, that's what they were doing. They had different names for it. It was like really, that's what you do when you showed up, the party drug.
Oh, okay.
Spanish fly. Hey, would you like something? Sure. Yeah. But I'm driving. You know what I'm saying? Oh, just give you one.
That. No,
All right,
it's nice.
I guess my question is, Bill's out. Does Robert Kelly have a chance?
So my response to that first is this: we got to remember that the first trial against Bill Cosby was hung.
Okay.
The same way.
I was in that first trial.
Right, hung, and then mistrial. And then the second, when they brought more white women, that's when it changed. Okay, so with respect to R. Kelly, remember he was acquitted. He was acquitted, so he had an opportunity, and there was a video, and there was evidence, and he was acquitted.
Yeah.
Right. So could he be acquitted again? Absolutely. Of course. There's any trial can go any way depending on how the evidence comes in, depending on the nature and the quality of the evidence. Right. And at this point, we don't know what the nature and quality of the evidence is going to be. Right. You might have victims who are gung ho in the beginning of the prosecution. Come trial a year later, they're like, I'm not coming. I don't. So,
and didn't some people in the case of Bill Cosby, and again, didn't some of them ended up recanting their stories, or or their stories were not to the caliber of what they claim?
I don't want to say recant. I want to say there was some inconsistencies.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? That's just a better characterize it. There was some inconsistencies. Yeah.
Okay.
765, let's go 1-765-538-7461. We're on with attorney Ike Speaks. We're talking about Bill Cosby. Hey, look, so a lot of people live and die by what the TV say, right? So he's let out, so then that means he's innocent. So does that mean he's uncanceled? And does that mean his show is coming back?
His show has been back on.
Oh, has it?
It's on Amazon Prime. I keep telling people it's on.
I didn't even know that.
Amazon Prime.
The show has been back on. I think when people started complaining about, different other people who have similar allegations and their shows are still on, then they put it back on. It's been back.
Oh, got it. That makes sense. Okay.
Will he write a book called "If I Had Done It"?
Right.
No, because he did do it.
Yeah, you already said it. Yeah.
It's like when I did it.
My question to the panel is, why can't I celebrate Bill Cosby being?
That's what I said.
Yeah. My question is, am I going to lose friends over me being happy that he?
Apparently on social media.
Don't tweet about it.
No, I saw. We have a couple of mutual friends, so I saw that somebody was talking about scaling back, and I'm like, I'm celebrating this man being out. He's 80. He's 102.
Right.
Get this man out. Give him free.
Right.
So that's my question to everybody. Am I wrong? Am I a bad person for celebrating him?
I looked at Felicia's joint, right?
Yeah.
Hers doesn't allow comments.
Well, she turned it off. She turned it off because she knew it was coming.
In other words, I said what I said.
Yeah.
Right.
I said what I said. I don't need anybody else to comment.
But it turned into a trending. Tariq was trending too, but it turned into a trending situation because everybody has to be heard and seen. Mm-hmm. But even I said something. I was like, y'all not going. This is a no Felicia slander zone. And Karen Hunter, she was like, "Well, close your ears then," because I know I know what side they on because they've been anti-Bill since the beginning. But I'm like, it's vindication from a criminal justice standpoint.
It's about the system for me.
It's about the system.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's what it. I mean, and whether or not the system works and it's going to dole out justice for anyone, just no matter what their station is in life. Everyone is entitled and deserves a fair trial, whether or not you believe that they are the most despicable person on the planet. Because if that person doesn't get a fair trial, baby, it's a slippery slope, right? And so then your best friend, your family member, they ain't getting a fair trial either.
Right.
And so you have to have that standard for all people.
Yeah, you got to have that, because you guilty and you don't get a fair trial. The innocent person don't have a chance.
Right.
All right, we appreciate you, as always, Ike Speaks, giving us the layman's breakdown with vulgarity and everything.
Where the goats can get it.
Yeah, so now now I understand what had happened was because y'all, and then people gonna go to work and be like, nah, because it was the finger fucker, and that's how they had got him out, because they had said, you know what I'm saying? You talk about digital penetration, it was finger fucker, you know what I'm saying?